You ever build something with your own two hands, something that matters, and watch someone try to tear it down over lawn aesthetics? My name's Eric, and I live just outside Fairhaven, Washington, at the edge of the Cascade foothills. Quiet place. Pine trees, winding roads, the kind of spot where you can actually hear the wind think. When I left the Air Force after 2 decades in comms, I didn't want to disappear into some condo in the city. I bought this fixer-upper cabin with a decent plot of land, built myself a radio shack in the basement, and installed what I call the Needlia 60-foot, cloud-gray monopole antenna with just enough tech wired into it to put NASA on alert. But I didn't build it for fun. It wasn't about ego or some hobby. I built it because the official county comms network is garbage. The terrain here eats radio waves alive. When people get lost in those hills, when storms come through and hikers vanish and helicopters have to find someone in the dark, you need signal. And more often than not, my tower is the only thing punching clean through that chaos. Maria, head of the Volunteer Search and Rescue Unit, calls me her unofficial tower guy. We talk nearly every night to test the system. It's quiet work. Purposeful. Invisible. Just how I like it. That is, until Carol Whitmore moved in across the street. You could spot the trouble the moment her spotless white SUV rolled up. She wore pressed khakis, coral lipstick, and this tight smile like she was bracing herself for the world to disappoint her again. No wave. No knock to say hello. Not even a passive-aggressive welcome basket. Just her standing on her porch every evening, staring at my tower like it was giving off toxic vibes and turning her hydrangeas into mutants. The first strike came in the form of a laminated notice slapped onto my front door. Unapproved vertical structure in violation of Section 4B3 of the Meadow Pines HOA guidelines. I kid you not, it was laminated and taped with what must have been half a roll of Gorilla Tape. The kind of effort that tells you, this isn't about rules. It's personal. The wording was a masterpiece of corporate nonsense phrases like aesthetic disruption and non-harmonious sightlines. It demanded a structural and aesthetic impact report to be submitted in 7 days. For a tower that's been here longer than the HOA itself. I peeled it off, sat down with my coffee, and stared out at the needle, wondering how anyone could look at something so functional and call it ugly. I tried being reasonable. I brought over my FCC paperwork, the city permits, and even a commendation letter from the sheriff's office thanking me for maintaining critical backup comms. I had Maria's letter two-hand signed explaining how my tower filled a deadly gap in the county's emergency coverage. I caught Carol in her driveway one afternoon, scrubbing her SUV rims with a toothbrush. "Hi there, Carol." Eric, from across the street. "About the tower." She didn't look up. "I'm aware." I smiled, kept it friendly. I figured there was just some confusion. This tower, it's not just for fun. It supports air rescue during storms, blackouts, even wildfires. She finally stood, wiped her gloved hands on a cloth. The bylaws are quite clear. No external structure over 8 feet without approval. "It's been here for years," I said. "Fully permitted. Doesn't interfere with anything." "It interferes with harmony," she snapped. "And quite frankly, it's probably emitting dangerous radiation. My begonias have been wilting." I stood there stunned. "Carol, it's a non-ionizing signal. Less radiation than your microwave. It's safer than a baby monitor." She narrowed her eyes. "You have 6 days to comply." Then she turned and went right back to scrubbing like she was preparing that car for the rapture. I walked home, defeated, and called my buddy Dave. "She wants a report," I told him. "So I'm going to give her one." I spent the next 48 hours crafting the most absurdly thorough document known to man. Over 100 pages, complete with FCC licenses, engineering specs, a 10-page educational section with cartoons explaining radio wave propagation, and high-resolution photos of the needle at sunset labeled geometrically pleasing vertical contrast. It was glorious. I sent it off, waited, and got an auto-reply. "Your submission will be reviewed at next month's meeting." 2 days later, another notice appeared, this time a $50 fine for failure to remediate. My jaw locked. I was following her rules. She just wanted to break me. I tried getting a contractor to inspect the tower to reinforce its safety. Gus and his apprentice Pablo showed up in a beat-up Ford, looked around, nodded respectfully at the tower. But no sooner had they unloaded their gear than a cop car rolled up. "Officer Miller." Tired eyes. World-weary tone. "Complaints about a structure," he said. HOA business. I told him the whole story. He checked his phone, scrolled through zoning regulations, sighed. She's wrong. You're in the clear by city code. Just try not to poke the bear. Even Gus looked nervous. Kid, I've seen what these types can do. Carol's the final boss of HOAs. She'll fine you into the Stone Age. He packed up and left. Pablo looked heartbroken. Days later, Carol escalated door to door, whispering warnings, handing out flyers with terrifying claims that my tower was a lightning rod, a cancer risk, even a potential national security vulnerability. I found one in my mailbox with a black and white photo of the tower looking like something out of a dystopian sci-fi film. That afternoon, Bill's next-door neighbor who used to share beers over the fence wouldn't even look me in the eye. Then came the cease and desist. Certified mail, thick envelope, legal letterhead. Cease and desist immediately. Failure to comply will result in litigation. I had 48 hours to shut down the tower or face a lawsuit claiming damages to the collective aesthetic and safety of Meadow Pines. I didn't have the money for a court fight. I sat in my radio room that night, lights glowing, server humming, and flipped the breakers one by one. Each click felt like a punch to the gut. The room dimmed, fell silent. The needle went dark. I called Maria. Eric, she said, instantly alert. I had to shut it down. HOA's suing. I'm sorry. She was quiet. Then, we've got a team standing by for a storm tonight. If we lose someone in those canyons. I know, I said. I'm so sorry. The next evening, the storm came in fast howling winds, sideways rain. I sat on the couch, guilt pooling in my gut. Then, through the static of my old police scanner, I heard it. Blackwood Canyon flash flood, family of 3 child with injury requesting air rescue. My blood ran cold. The SAR chopper came over the radio. We've lost signal. County repeater not reaching. Flying blind. I jumped up, heart racing. My tower was the only signal that reached Blackwood Canyon. I had shut it off. Without thinking, I bolted to the basement. Hit the breakers. Fired up the server. Reconnected the antenna. Lights flared back to life like a heartbeat. I grabbed the mic. SAR command. This is Kilo Juno 7 Alpha. Do you copy? Static, then Maria's voice, sharp with relief. Eric. Oh, thank God. We're blind out here. I've got you, I said. Hold tight. I zeroed in on the signal, adjusted gain, sent a clean line straight down the canyon. The pilot's voice came through loud and clear. We've got signal. Locking on. And just then, bam, 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 a furious pounding on my front door. You're in violation of a legal order. Carol screeched outside. I ignored her. Focused. Signal at 297. Descend 500 feet. You'll see a clearing by the bend. I've got visual, the pilot shouted. They're waving a flashlight. They found them. They were safe. I sat back, shaking, soaked in sweat, heart thudding, and the needle stood tall. The next morning, a helicopter did a slow flyover of our neighborhood. As it passed my house, it dipped its nose and waggled its wings. Down below, 2 police cars and a news van showed up. Carol was mid-meltdown, screaming at Officer Miller. He violated a cease and desist. Arrest him. Miller held up a hand. Ma'am, he just helped save 3 lives, including a child. What about the bylaws? She shrieked. Then the reporter turned to me. Sir, was your tower part of the rescue? I nodded. Just a hobby, I said. Glad I could help. The neighbors had heard it all. The salute. The scanner chatter. The meltdown. And they knew. I wasn't the problem. By noon, the HOA board had accepted Carol's resignation. By sunset, Bill knocked on my door with a gift basket. And a week later, I got an email from the new board president. A new bylaw had passed. All emergency comms infrastructure verified by county services is exempt from aesthetic restrictions. Carol put her house up for sale. The for sale sign gleamed in her perfect lawn. And me? I poured a coffee, sat back in my radio room, and smiled at the sweet sound of a clear signal. Now I want to ask you, if you had to choose between saving lives or following rules, what would you do? Let me know in the comments and tell me, what's the wildest thing an HOA has ever done to you or someone you know? Because sometimes, the real rescue isn't from the canyon. It's from the people trying to control it.